Welcome back, everybody. Protesters in Los Angeles gathered outside Dodger Stadium on Friday, angry over an award ceremony for the LGBTQ advocacy group known as the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. Thankfully, no disturbances came out of the protests, and the group went on to receive its award. It is the latest Pride-related event to be caught in the crosshairs of conservative advocates who have only become more vocal in recent years. The trend is the result of a pointed strategy from certain right-wing groups to influence the social climate. One of those groups is the American College of Pediatrics. And if that name seems innocuous and trustworthy to you on the surface, that is the idea. In reality, this group works as a leading force behind some of the nation's most extreme Republican medical movements, from promoting gay conversion therapy to pushing to outlaw the abortion pill, to working to ban hormone therapy for transgender people. Now, the Washington Post this week uncovering thousands of internal documents that detail the group's inner workings. One of the journalists who broke that story is joining me now, Lauren Weber. Lauren, thanks for joining us on this. I think the researcher Kellen Baker said it best. Without knowing what's actually behind it, you would think it is a medical professional organization. It's not. He goes on to say it's a tiny group of fringe conservatives who didn't like the fact that the field was leaving them behind. Tell us about the American College of Pediatrics. Pediatricians, I should say.
Yes, I was going to say, so the American College of Pediatricians is a small conservative group that has for a long time sought to shape the nation's most contentious issues by presenting their views as medical science when often they are rejected by the medical establishment. And they've become very successful in recent years, in part by tapping into conservative media and using it as a megaphone. And as we heard, their name does sound very familiar to the American Academy of Pediatrics, which is the much larger group that has about 67,000 members, 95% of pediatricians, as opposed to this group, the American College of Pediatricians, which has about 700 members, the internal documents show.
I'm curious how the Washington Post accessed these records. They are claiming, this group of doctors is claiming essentially they were hacked, but in fact, it was more about their privacy settings, it seems.
Yeah, so my colleague Taylor Lorenz was given copies of the documents by sources that accessed it after their Google Drive was left public. So essentially, that's how we were able to review the documents and check that the metadata had not been altered, to kind of see this insight into the inner workings of the group and their inner board memos and meetings, and see how they come to these beliefs and how they've shaped society.
So I want to talk about what they're doing. And I'll read for folks from the piece in the Washington Post. The organization sent 15,000 mailers to quote unquote conservative physicians between 2018 and 2019. One document instructed the group to target Christian MDs in red letters, as well as recruit pediatricians in red states. It gained further national prominence this year as one of the plaintiffs in the federal lawsuit to limit access to mifepristone, a key abortion drug. The organization's quest to ban the use of puberty blockers and hormone therapy for transgender minors has culminated in a string of recent legislative wins following lobbying in at least 8 states, as shown by internal documents. Talk to me more about what they are successfully able to accomplish.
Well, look, they've deployed members of their group to testify in state legislatures. They've sent letters. They've been able to change gender-affirming care policies at hospitals in St. Louis. They have members who are prominent in different hospitals around the country. They even had a member who was the head of Texas's state public health department. They've been able to, through this network of folks and through, right-wing media channels, through Fox News, through other right-wing media, express these beliefs that the medical establishment has rejected as scientific fact, and have managed to rack up quite a string of legislative and litigation wins.
Lauren Weber for us. Thank you for this really excellent reporting. We appreciate it.